So like he said, my name is Mason Matthews. I'm years old. I'm 36. So a little bit about myself. I'm from San Angelo. I grew up at Johnson Street Church of Christ. I've been married to my wife Brenna for 7 years, and we have a daughter, Henley, who you'll probably hear yell here in a second. She is all of me, and she does not know how to be quiet. So a little bit about my work life. I worked for San Angelo Fire Department. I got hired in 2009, so I've worked there a little over 12 years. I just recently got promoted to a position that's called EMS Administrator. It's a new thing we've never had. It's turning out to be a lot more than I thought it was going to be, but I love it. And I also serve as the recruiter for San Angelo Fire Department, going out and trying to encourage people to come and be a firefighter and a paramedic and work for us. I also kind of serve as the PIO for the fire department, so I do a lot of PR stuff, which I don't really like, but I really like my job, so it's easy to talk about. So, and I very much enjoy that. Like I said, I do have a connection to Johnson Street. I grew up in this church. My grandparents have been long-term members of this church. I mentioned my daughter. One of the things that I remember the most about Johnson Street is my grandparents sit right back there at the same pew every day, and my brother and I used to army crawl up the pews, and underneath people. So if my daughter, she's probably genetically predispositioned to do that, probably. So if you look down and you've got a little girl crawling underneath your legs, it's cool. She gets it from her dad. So I've had a lot of really big moments standing up here in this place. I used to be terrified of this when I got into youth group. One of the things that we would do is we would take turns volunteering to read scripture in big church, right? Or lead the prayer in big church. And I can remember the first time I ever got up here, I got a death grip on the podium, and I just said, oh yeah. So it's so funny to come back full circle. Now I'm standing up here, but I feel very comfortable here in this place, and with the faces that I see. This is home. This is my family. I was incredibly honored when they asked me to come talk. I thought, man, that's going to be the easiest speech I've ever given, So I'm very excited to be here. I was thinking about this. The last time I stood up here was my grandfather's funeral, a little over a year ago. So, very special place to me, and I love Johnson Street. Man, the songs, man, I can't tell you, Johnson Street Praise and Worship, there's nothing like it. Light the Fire, one of my absolute favorite songs, makes me think of Camp Victory. That's where I gave my life to Christ. I mean, chills just even talking about it. I can't tell you. I wish we could have sat there and sang the whole time. I'd have been fine with that. But anyway, so I'm here to talk about San Angelo. I'd like to start off just kind of talking about San Angelo. Well, yeah, they're firemen, right? They drive fire trucks really fast. They run red lights and stuff like that. What's really interesting when I go out and I do like school visits, or I go and speak to groups, and well, what does the fire department do? And everybody's like, well, if we know what you do, well, what do we do? And it's kind of like, I guess you fight fires, It's so much more than that. And this job and this career field is changing dramatically in a very, very fast fashion. A lot of things are changing that. COVID changed a lot of that. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit tonight. I just kind of want to start out just kind of telling you who San Angelo Fire Department is and what we do, what we have, and what we do for this community. So San Angelo Fire Department, we have about 195 employees, okay? And that's split into 5 divisions. We have basically an administration, which has got 3 chiefs, right? Our fire chief and 2 assistant chiefs. Chief Brian Dunn, Assistant Chief Johnny Fisher, and Assistant Chief Brody. Then there's a battalion chief, an administrative battalion chief that's in administration, named Corey Sanders, and then me. I don't have chief or any of that stuff, but I get to sit with them every day and pretend like I know what I'm talking about. So, I have loved that. I've been in administration for about a year. I feel like I'm very young to be in an administrative position, which I wasn't real comfortable with, but I feel like I get to be involved in a lot of change for a very big organization that's going to change what we do for a really long time. So I've taken that on. I really, really, really enjoy it. So some of our other divisions are our floor personnel, our shift personnel, which is what you would think of firemen, right? Those are the firemen that are at the fire stations that are making fire calls and responding to 911 calls. Then we have our fire training center, which is out on the northeast side of town. They're in charge of a lot of things. They teach rookie school. So when we hire someone, they basically enter into a rookie school, and we put them through about an 18-month fire and EMS course. It is fast and it is hard. It is 8 to 5, Monday through Friday for 18 months. And they're doing nothing but school. It is well more than a 4-year bachelor degree would be as far as hours go. It's kind of funny, when I picked the fire department, I was kind of going to school. I didn't really know what I wanted to be. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I thought, well, I'm kind of like into sports and like being in good shape, so I'll just go be a fireman. Just like run into burning buildings and like be awesome, right? I don't really like school, Then I get on the fire department and they're like, hey, you're gonna go to school for 18 months. And I'm like, well, maybe I don't want to do that. So I got really lucky that I picked a really good job that I like. But it's a highly technical job. So the schooling is very important, and the training center does a wonderful job basically molding these young people and getting them ready for what they're about to do. And I'm gonna talk about that here in a second. They also are involved with all the training and keeping us basically up to date with all the emergency stuff we're about to go to. So, paramedics have to have 144 hours of continuing education every 4 years. That's a big task for 195 people. We also have to have 20 hours of fire training, 8 hours of hazmat training, another 8 hours of wildland training every year, and someone's got to be in charge of making sure everybody's meeting that stuff. It is amazing how year to year things change, right? Now we have hybrid vehicles. The batteries aren't here now they're here. And don't do it here, don't touch it here because it might catch on fire. There's just so much that changes in our job just day to day, and the training is a very big deal. The next division is the Fire Prevention Division, which is the Fire Marshal's office. They're in charge, obviously, of fire prevention and preventing fires and going out and doing community outreach and basically teaching about fire prevention. My wife, Brenna, works in the fire prevention office, so we are a fire family. So I get to see her every day, or let me take that back. She gets to see me every day. She really likes that. And but anyway, they also do all fire inspections, right? So they inspect properties, making sure they're up to code. They also do all the fire investigations. So we show up, put it out, they show up and investigate it and try to decide how it got started, what happened, and everything like that, and then make improvements, maybe even write tickets. They're also basically connecting to insurance, right, when someone files for insurance and doing fire reports. The last division is the Division of Emergency Management, which is basically, emergency management would work with all types of different entities here in San Angelo to mitigate any type of emergency. Obviously, when the freeze happened, working with the fire department, working with police, working with some of the stores here in town to start getting water and getting out and getting shelters for people who didn't. It's a big deal, and it's a big collective effort. So, but that's a little bit about the divisions at the fire department. So we have 8 fire stations here in town that are strategically placed all over town, with one of those stations being on the airport, which is called our Airport Rescue Firefighting Station. It is a specialty station. It's got a whole set of different rules because of the FAA, and that alone in itself is a big to-do. But there's 8 stations here in town. Everyone that works for San Angelo Fire Department, per civil service, we are a civil service fire department, everyone has to be a firefighter and a paramedic. Can't be one or the other. What is good about that's a lot different than a lot of other cities, a lot of bigger cities. A lot of bigger cities, you have the fire department and their firemen, and then they may have a private ambulance service that handles, the ambulance calls, which means those are 2 separate entities, which makes for not always, a good mesh sometimes at an emergency scene. So what's good about, what I really like about San Angelo, and what's good for our community is everyone is trained exactly the same, which means, so some days when I come to work, they say, hey Mason, get on the ambulance, and okay. And some days I come in and they say, get on the fire truck, and I'm like, okay. We call that a truck step. You can tell when you come into work and guys are walking down the hall, they're on the truck that day, so. But everyone is trained exactly the same, which is good because there are more fire trucks in town than there are ambulances, which means you basically, if you have an emergency wherever you are randomly in the city, the possibility of a fire truck getting to you before an ambulance getting to you is good, which obviously the fire truck's not going to haul you to the hospital, the ambulance is going to, but the good thing is the 3 people that hop off that fire truck are trained exactly the same as the guys that are coming on the ambulance, and they carry all most of the same things. So you're getting a highly trained person that can deal with your emergency until the ambulance gets there, and then we go to the hospital. So That is a good thing. That is a very good thing. San Angelo is very lucky to have everybody that works at their fire department is trained as high as they possibly can on the fire side and on the EMS side. A lot of people don't know this, so our fire department only responds to fires inside of the city limits. The ambulance service covers the entire county, Tom Green County. That's a lot of calls. But we're kind of the only show in town as far as EMS goes, which means anything in this county that comes in as an ambulance call is San Angelo Fire Department, and that's who's coming. If it's a fire outside of the city limits, we have mutual aid where sometimes, if it was out at wall, they may call and need San Angelo Fire to come out and assist, which is another big deal that's very public. And obviously, I don't want to go too far into that, but your tax dollars pay for us for cover fire in the city, and that it's a big public thing. Anyway. But anyway, that's what that is. So fire is citywide, EMS is all countywide. Calls, we make about 20,000 calls a year. So just out of a guess, out of 20,000 calls, how many of those do you think are fire related? Shoot a number. What do you think? 5,000. But 15,000 of those are ambulance. We are about 80 to 90% EMS versus fire. Well, why is that? Well, that's because the fire prevention office does such a great job. It's my wife, man. She's so good at her job. They prevent so many fires. That is part of the reason. Part of the reason is we do a good part of their job is fire prevention and going out and talking about fire prevention, enforcing that code. It's not just somebody coming in and doing this to you, right? If you run a business, hey, you need a fire extinguisher over here. It's a big deal. The other thing is sprinkler systems, right? And as things change, and you're right, we have new codes and permits. When you go and you build that new business or you build that new house or whatever, there is a bunch of new rules in place that are putting, fire extinguishing systems in there. There's just less fires. EMS has changed a lot in 12 years. It is now used a lot of the time like primary health care. It just goes up every year. San Angelo is growing. I don't care what anybody tells you, it is growing. Our runs go up 500 to 1,000 a year every single year. Well, why is that? Well, our population's not growing that much. It is. ASU has record enrollment every year. The base is a very big place, Goodfellow. There is a lot of people on base. And we have an aging population. We do so much more EMS than we do fire. It's amazing. And that is, like I said, ever changing. There is, just in the last 2 years, and I'm going to talk about that change here in a second, we've added so many things in our ambulance that where, 5 years ago, we were just good old guys coming and pick you up and take you to the hospital. It's not like that now. We are training our personnel. We are teaching our personnel. We're changing our protocols where they're practicing medicine in a moving vehicle going down the road. We're doing really big things in the back of that ambulance. And sometimes you may not even know. You're sitting next to us at a light, and you would be amazed on what's going on in those walls. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that change here in a second. Shifts. So we have 3 shifts, A, B, and C shift. A shift's the best. I'm just going to tell you that right now. And of course, every shift would tell you that they're the best. It's a big war all the time. But we work 24 hours every time we come to work, 7 a.m. to 7 a.m. Our schedule, you want to pay attention here because it's pretty hard to do. So our schedule is really weird. I just got done building a new scheduler for the fire department, and when I was talking to the people that were helping me set it up, when I told them, they're like, I do this for people all over the world, and I've never heard of that in my life. So San Angelo is one of a kind. But our schedule, we work 1 day on, 1 day off, 1 day on, 2 days off, 1 day on, 1 day off, 1 day on, 4 days off. Now, I can tell you when I first got hired, I thought, man, I'm going to miss work, Luckily, they give you this little calendar, and it's color-coded, and all you got to do is look at, there's black days, green days, and red days. Okay, I'm showing up on the black days. Okay, I can do that. So we work 10 days a month. We work 10 days a month, and we're off for 20. Well, man, 10 days a month, you don't work that much. It's 240 hours. It's a lot. You are living there a third of your life. There's no cool way to say that. You live at the fire station quite a bit. What I do like about that, and what's so amazing to me about 911, and I say this sometimes when I go out to schools, I say, so if you think about it, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, the fire department's open. It's never closed. Like, we're open more than Walmart. That's how much we're open. on Christmas morning when you're sitting there are 52 people sitting in a station just waiting for bad things to happen. That's amazing to think about when you think about that, And I love that about the fire station. There's always someone there. You never walk in and go, man, it's kind of dead today. No, everybody's there. So, but that's pretty cool. So our apparatus, I tell you, we have fire trucks and ambulances. So every fire station obviously has a fire truck, and almost every station has an ambulance and a backup ambulance. So the way that works is, like I said, there's 52 people spread out over those 8 stations, and those are spread up. We used to go by districts. We kind of still do. So like you have Central Fire Station, which is on Bryant, downtown, and then they have a district, right? So Central's district runs from about Main Street all the way to Galena Street, which is a really big district, which means you don't want to work at Central Fire Station. But they cover a very big portion of downtown in San Angelo, which is easily our busiest area of town. Now everything's GPSed, and that has to do with legal and liability reasons. So when dispatch gets a call, they just grab the closest unit, which is good for the public. Obviously, you're getting the closest one as fast as possible. But what's cool about all the ambulances is, and what makes us a lot different than maybe a private service, and this is why San Angelo Fire does keep both, and we work really hard at not allowing or letting EMS go private, is if all 6 of those ambulances were out on a call at the same time. And you think, well, how often does that happen? Weekly. It happens all the time. What's good is when that 7th call comes in, what we do is we take the guys on one of those fire trucks, hey, why don't you hop on an ambulance, and then they make the call. And then if another one comes in, we go to another fire truck and go, hey, you guys get on that ambulance and make the call. And what's cool is the driver of the truck stays with the fire truck, and then if a fire comes in, those guys would break off and then meet him at the fire, and then they'd hop on the fire truck. So we have so much maneuverability there where we have San Angelo very well covered no matter what could possibly come in. So we've got a lot of stuff going on. The programs. Some of the programs we have at the fire department, but I really like, we're working on a new CPR program. Basically, so right now I currently go out to schools, well, anybody that wants it, and I go out and I teach hands-only CPR, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's CPR without the mouth-to-mouth, right? So I go out and I teach how to do CPR. I teach it at schools, churches, bunco groups, bingo groups, anything you can possibly think of. And we are developing a program where you can call San Angelo Fire Department and say, hey, I need to be certified in CPR. And you can actually come and I will give you a class and certify you in CPR. A lot of places, healthcare facilities here in town, daycare facilities here in town, a lot of times have to be certified in CPR. And one of the first things a couple months ago when they put me in this position, I thought, man, it is crazy that the people that do CPR are not the ones teaching CPR. So I went to my fire chief. I said, hey, we got to be the ones doing that, and we need to get out there and advertise it that we're the ones that show up and do it. Why are we not the ones teaching how to do it? So we are working on that, and that should be set up in a couple months. One of the other things that I started teaching and I got really passionate about a couple years ago was Stop the Bleed. I don't know if y'all know much about that. It also sounds it is exactly what it sounds like. But one of the most correctable or preventable things of death after injury is bleeding, is hemorrhage control. I don't think it's not any secret. We know that we've got a lot of water here in town. I just, in the last couple weeks, with DPS and the game warden, a few things, I've put out some stuff about water safety, in and around water, boating safety. We're having more and more injuries at our lake every day. We're fortunate to have the water, but a lot of bad things happen around the water. And most of them involve injuries where hemorrhage or bleeding is an issue. The other deal is we have more and more active violence incidents, in our country, all over the world. And the reality is they're going to keep happening, and they're going to happen at a more and more. The Stop the Bleed is basically a program where you go out in your community and basically teach them to be first responders. And what little things you teach them about hemorrhage control and bleeding control could possibly save somebody's life. So that's something I'm very passionate about. I teach that at a lot of the schools. I usually go to the in-services right before school starts and teach all the teachers. State of Texas now mandates that Stop the Bleed kits be in all the schools. So that's just something the San Angelo Fire Department jumped all over and wanted to be out there giving that training and teaching that. I talked a little bit about the change. We have added, I would say that in the past year, San Angelo Fire Department's probably gone through more change, well, definitely more change in the last 12 years that I've worked there. Equipment that we've added. We've added what's called a power load system on all of our ambulances, which is a hydraulic lift system. By pressing a button, I could lift 700 pounds on that stretcher without me even touching it, 700 pounds. You can imagine how big of a deal that is. At 10 to 15 runs a day, not having to lift or manhandle patients, reducing the physical stress on our firefighters and our paramedics. I mean, that's just, I can't even tell you what that does for you at the end of a 24-hour shift. Some of the other things that we've added is a Cpr device, which is basically a device that we put on somebody that does absolute perfect CPR and I don't have to touch you at all, which now basically turns down that adrenaline or the oh no of what you're doing, where you can think, and I can think about what medications I need to give you. Why are we doing cardiac arrest? Why is your heart possibly not beating? Maybe I can fix that now. So it's all about turning down the volume, from a 10 to at least like a 6, where we can basically work and possibly try to correct what's going on and possibly save this person and get a pulse back. So that, again, I mean, that is, I cannot tell you, that usually only happens in big cities. So that was a big change for us. I mentioned to you that I built a scheduler. So the other part that's changing in our world is the legal and liability side of our job. What used to be just good old guys coming to try to do a good job now is we became a good job and we didn't like the outcome, and now we're going to court and we need to do this, which means that the paperwork side of our job is just ugh. That's why I'm the EMS Administrator, probably. So I've spent the past 6 months building a system and moving us to another one, which means I'm not a very popular person at the fire station right now. One of the sayings is the only, firemen don't like what they were doing, what they're going to do. They don't like anything. They hate change. We went live with this system 2 days ago, and no one will even look at me. So I invited them to come, and nobody's here. So I'm just kidding. But it is a very, very big change for us. But it's all for good. It's one big system that now the fire prevention is using it, fire training is using it, the floor is using it, and everybody is under one big umbrella, and the whole system talks to itself. So it's a really big thing for us. I'm going to say we're really excited about it. They would probably say different, so just don't ask them. But that's a little bit about the fire department. I'd like to talk a little bit about hiring, and then I'm going to kind of get into, I kind of told you what we do. I'd like to talk to you about a little bit of different aspect of what we do that maybe you don't think about. It's going to be a little bit more vulnerable. It's obviously coming from a personal place, but it's something that the firemen aren't really comfortable talking about, and I kind of want to let you into that world a little bit. A little bit about the rookie school I told you. So I told you I'm in college, right? And I'm making not great grades. My parents are real proud, and I need to figure out what I'm going to do, And so I thought, I told you, I thought, I'd be a fireman. Chicks dig that. I could be a fireman. That'd be cool. So I go and I apply, get to be a fireman, and I get in there. I get hired. Man, I'm loving it. I'm gonna be a hero, and I'm gonna go to these fires and pull people out. And that's what I'm thinking. Well, I get into the class, and they say, oh, you have to be a paramedic too. I'm like, yeah, of course, yeah, I'll do that. But I'm going to save people from fires, I get in this class, and we start learning about the human body, and we start learning about some of these emergencies we're going to go on, some of these medical emergencies or traumatic emergencies that we're going to go on. And it dawns on me that at some point I'm going to get out of school, and it's going to be me in the back of an ambulance, and someone's life's going to be hanging in the balance, and I'm going to have to know how to fix it. And the freak out sets in, and I didn't really talk to my family about that at the time, but I'm thinking, man, I may have messed up. I don't know if I can do this. I hadn't had much failure in my life up to that point, and for the first time, I'm realizing that maybe I might not be good at this. I've always been pretty good at what I do. I was good at sports and pretty good at school sometimes, I thought, I don't know if I can do this. And I took the training, probably one of the first times I applied myself wholly at an academic something, because I was just so scared of what's fixing to happen. Very first day, right? I get done with school, I graduate. Very first day, I report to work, and man, it's cool. They gave me a uniform, right? My family's coming by there. I'm like, you want to see the truck? Y'all come out here. And very first day, I make 4 cardiac arrests. and 2 people that expired in the field. My very first day, 24 hours. And I will never forget going home and going over to my mom and dad's house, and I'm like, I'm in messed up. Like, I don't think I can do this. My whole life I hadn't dealt with much tragedy. No one in my family had any health issues. I hadn't really lost any family members. Everybody was healthy. I broke my arm a few times, but I'd never dealt with any real tragedy. Everything had always just been okay. And now they showed me, right, for 18 months I sat in this class and they told me, if someone's not breathing right, this is how you fix it. And if someone's doing this, you give them this medication and then it fixes. And then if you show up and someone's heart's not beating, you do this and then you're gonna do that and then it's gonna start beating again and they're gonna say, thank you for saving me, and it's gonna be okay. And that didn't happen, not at all. All 6 of those people didn't make it that day. And I'm a Christian, and I believe in God's will, and everything happens for a reason. And now, all the stuff that they just taught me now doesn't work. Some of the guilt that goes into that. Did I do something wrong? Like maybe I didn't. Maybe I'm just not cut out for this. Maybe I need to do something else. Luckily they pulled me down sat me down after that first day and were like, hey, that was not normal. Okay. You may have made a bad career choice because we don't like you right now because you're bad luck. But that's not how every day is. There are wins and there are losses. And that was so hard to come to grips with. I signed up because I want to do a good job and I want to save their life. I want things to go good, and I'm going to go home and feel good about myself. And I'm going to tell you, you want to talk about wearing on you emotionally, wearing on you physically, wearing on you spiritually. Day 2, right? My second shift. Okay, this one's going to be better. This one's going to be better. And I get out there and I'm checking out the ambulance and boom, we're going to deliver a baby. I didn't pay attention to that class. Maybe I didn't apply myself so well. And we show up and luckily everything goes great. My life's obviously changed forever. I don't have children at this point, so I'm like, whoa, But everything goes great. Everything goes great, and then we leave, and now it's time for breakfast, right? And we get back to the station, and then the next call comes in, and we go, and it's a cardiac arrest. And in the swing of an hour, you just went from bringing someone's life into the world to someone who is now possibly leaving this world. And I am telling y'all, it took a very long time for me spiritually to figure out how I was going to deal with that. I would pray, but some of the things that you're going to and some of the things that you're seeing, it makes you start kind of questioning, like, how was that God's will? Like, how does that work like that? They were just driving down the road. They were just walking down the road. They were eating breakfast, and now all of a sudden they're not breathing anymore. How do you deal with that? And how do you deal with, I walk in and I'm there, and I'm trained. I know how to do this. I'm ready, and I'm you're not going there yet. Let's go. I got this. And it doesn't work out. And then you go back to the fire station, and there's this guy, he's been working here 20 years, and he's just as cool as can be. Hey, man, you did good. Good try. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Good try. It took a very long time for me to get to a point where I could deal with that emotionally, and I still struggle with it sometimes. I've worked in several other EMS agencies too. I'm one of those guys, I guess I'm not very smart. I burn the candle at both ends. So I leave one fire EMS job and go work at another fire EMS job, in Big Lake or in Brady. I worked for AirMed for a while. Eden. I worked at Community in the ER. I'm leaving all this tough stuff and going right to another one in a smaller community and doing all this other tough stuff again, and going right back to San Angelo and doing all this tough stuff. And it was tough. It was tough. It still is. It's really hard sometimes to put that in a place where you're okay with it and you understand why it happens, and then you can go on the next one, because you've got to suppress all those things because the next one's coming and it's a totally different person with a totally different family, and it's the worst day of their life, and you got to fix it. And it is, I cannot tell you just how hard that can be. That has hurt our, I know when Chief Carter came, he talked about, recruitment being a very tough thing. Same way in the fire department. I think people are figuring out, man, that's a lot of stress. Man, that is hard. I don't know if I want to do that. You don't get paid very much. I don't want to do that. Makes it so hard to go to a recruiting, to a job fair, or go to a high school and stand up and go, hey, come do this. It's going to be great. And then they start asking me those tough questions, and I can tell you, I'm not a very good liar, So I'm not good at, it's going to be okay. You're going to be fine. No, it is tough. And I don't sugarcoat it. I tell them, you do go to this, and sometimes you have some wins, and way more times than that you do not. It doesn't go well. And you have got to find a way. I will tell you, there's no way you're making it 20 years or 30 years in this career if you cannot figure out a way to deal with that spiritually and move on. It is so incredibly tough. I remember thinking when I got in the fire department, San Angelo's like a small town, it's kind of small. I mean, everybody knows everybody, and I kind of thought, I'm gonna go be just a good old neighborhood fireman. I'm from here. Everybody's gonna know me, and I'm gonna show up, and they're gonna go, oh, it's Mason. Yeah, he's Randy and Kathy's son. That's Paul and Betty's grandson. I will tell you that has made this job so much harder. I am so fortunate that my family is very involved in our community, and it made it important for me to be involved in my community, and I wanted to be involved in my community. But I will tell you now, it is so hard. There is not one time I have gone. There's many times, and not one time. Many times I go to I go to a 911 call. I hop out of the ambulance and I hear Mason, and I have no clue who this person is at all. Oh, I work with your dad at ASU. Your dad was a trainer at ASU, right? Yeah. Man. And they've made a connection now with you, and you have no clue what you're about to walk up to or if it's going to be good or bad. And we hop in the ambulance, and the last thing they saw is he's with Randy's son. Our loved one's with Randy's son. He's going to be okay. I know that kid. He's a good kid. And you get to the ER, and maybe it doesn't go good. And I come walking out, and I'm so sorry. We did everything we could. I just can't, and I'm not trying to, make that sound more dramatic than it is. It is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's so hard. You walk up to a wreck. Mason, I don't know if you remember me. Oh, it is so hard to do that and do this job in a community where you are connected to everyone somehow. It is really, really hard. And I am, again, the emotional stress of that, you do that, and then that happens on a Saturday night, and then Sunday morning you're sitting in church, and there they are. Hey, how are you? They're so hard. I realized really quick, I got to be really good at my job. I can't ever be in the back of an ambulance or on a fire truck and not know what I'm about to do, because I'm not ever going to be able to go home and be okay and put this in a place where I can move on to the next one without knowing that I missed nothing. I did everything I possibly could, and I did it to a T, perfect. And sometimes it just doesn't work out. And I still, 12 years into this job, I do not take that for granted. I read every piece of literature that can come out. I read every article that comes out that says now this is happening and now this is happening, because I never want to be in a situation where I have to look at someone that I possibly know and say, I'm so sorry that didn't go good, but I did everything I possibly could. That's incredibly tough. I've never said this in front of people. I've never even, I've given a lot of speeches, the past 12 years. I've never talked about this with someone. I've talked about it with firemen. We kind of talk about it. I will tell you, it's not cool to talk about that at work. It's just not. We're tough, man. We wear suspenders and big old boots and have soot on our face all the time. It's not cool to come back in front of the fire station and go, man, did you see that? Like, how did that happen? Like, how do you feel about that? That's not cool. It just doesn't happen. I can tell you this new system that I built, it is built with mental health and checking on people. It's got some systems built into it to where I can actually run runs that they've gone on and like flag them for, hey, this is a high stress critical incident and we need to go talk to this person and make sure they're doing okay. I will also tell you, I don't, like I said earlier, I don't know how you could do this job without having some type of spiritual connection. You have to find a way to put that okay with yourself to move to the next one. We got a lot of firemen that are a lot of different denominations that maybe believe a lot of different things, but I can tell you as our brotherhood, that one thing that we do have is a belief in a higher power, and what we're doing, we do everything we can, and when it doesn't work out, you have to believe that they have gone to a better place. And that's the only way you can make the next call, and the next call, or the next call, or the next call, and they never stop coming. There is no, hey, we just need a break for an hour. That doesn't exist. That's not good for you. If you're the next person with the emergency, you don't want me taking a break. There is no break. It's either you work or you don't work. So That is kind of weird, and I don't mean to get all somber and weird and make it like that, but I don't think anybody ever really hears that. I know there's no other fireman standing up and telling people that. I can tell you I'm not comfortable telling you about it. But I do think it's important that you hear kind of what we go through on a daily basis, physically and emotionally and spiritually. I guess I'll kind of like wrap it up there now that I've killed the mood. But I'll kind of wrap it up there and just kind of open it up to questions if that's okay. If that's all right. I know one of the things that we were talking about was you as a church group, trying to want to help us, right? Or how do we get involved and how do you help you? I will tell you this, I truly believe in the power of prayer. I truly do. And I cannot tell you how much it means when I'm walking through a grocery store to get breakfast, when someone stops me and goes, every time I see a fire truck, I say a prayer. I cannot tell you, the thank you for your service stuff, I'm like, yeah, thank you, which makes me feel a little weird, I'm like, I love my job, it's okay. But man, every single time we're sitting at a red light, me and my kid, we say a prayer for the ambulance that goes by. We pray for you and your crew, and we pray for the person that might be in it. I cannot tell you, I get chills talking about it. I cannot tell you how important that is to hear. And I probably give them a typical firefighter response. Well, thank you, ma'am. But when I walk away, that is a true connection. That this person doesn't know anything about me, all because they saw that square box with 4 wheels that I'm driving down the road in, and they're saying a prayer for me. I cannot tell you how much that means. So when you say, well, how can we help? And I say, well, say a prayer for us. I don't mean that in a cliche way. I truly mean that. I cannot tell you how much that means. The other thing I'd say is those classes. I told you some of these programs, these CPR classes, these Stop the Bleed classes that I give. Take them. Call me. I will come it is free. I will show up anywhere you want me to. I'll teach 100 people. I'll teach 5 people, and I'll give you a Stop the Bleed class. Because I promise you, it's going to be the camping trip that you're on that you don't think anything about, and you're on the way there, and you're cruising down the interstate with your family, and you pull up, and there's a wreck, and someone's bleeding, and you're going to think, wish I'd have called that Mason guy. He could have told me what to do right now. The other thing is, one thing that I have learned is everybody has this innate, I believe, inevitable, I want to help. You're going to have the people that go, and run away. You're going to have the people that go, ooh, call 911. You're going to have the people that do call 911, and you're going to have the people that go, man, I want to do something, I'm just not really sure what I need to do right now. Man, call me, I'll teach you what to do. So, I want to build a resiliency in our community that turns all of you in, like I said, first responders. You think, well, yeah, fire department of first responders, you are the first responder. The bystander that's standing there that gets there first, you're the first responder. And what you do is probably more important than when I get there and I'm about to do, because those 3 to 5 minutes that it takes us to respond to this emergency are going to make all the difference. So please seek out those things. Go get trained in CPR, just cause. Call me, have me come and teach Stop the Bleed to you, all right? So, anyway, yeah, any questions? I did that good? I just covered it all? That's awesome. Yes, sir.
How did we wind up? You were talking about having the firefighters having the same training as the EMTs.
Paramedic.
How did that happen?
So what's really interesting, so my dad sitting back here in the red shirt, he actually worked for San Angelo Emergency Services back when it was still private. A lot of things played into that. Really, so I'm not that old. Sorry, you are. But I wasn't around back then. But basically what happened is more and more ambulance calls. They get busier and busier and busier and busier, and it basically got bigger than the units they had available. So kind of what it turned out is, now people are waiting 20, 30 minutes, 45 minutes for an ambulance because they're just overtasked. So you got all these firefighters sitting over here, and they've got what's called like an EMT basic certification, which is basically the lowest one you can get, right? And they go, well, you know what? We could just take it over. We'll swallow it up. We'll have their employees come into our system, and we'll just make everybody be a paramedic. So by taking that over, basically you went from that, I don't know how many employees they had then, but they went from, 10 employees to 150 that fast. So that was really, really the big deal. So, and that's just, now that is one thing that we look at all the time. Every year I'm running numbers and say, how many calls do we make? How many of those are ambulance calls? I also do what's called unit hour utilization. So when I run these numbers, it's terrible. I sit in front of a computer, I just want to go crazy. But I look at these days and I basically look and see how often those ambulances are in service. And what I mean by that is if that unit hour utilization, so that integer of like how long each ambulance is in service in a 24-hour period falls below a threshold, that means they're not in service to be able to take your call. So when that hits a certain number, I'm in the fire chief's office. Hey, we need another ambulance. You need to go to city council and ask for more money. But it's a very big deal, and the city doesn't think twice about it. Absolutely, let's do it. And that's how we basically keep up with it. But that's how we got here. I don't know if you saw, I told you I was going to talk a little bit about COVID. I don't want to get too far into that, but obviously terrible. We also had a hospital buy out a hospital in the middle of a public health emergency, which just made our life not good. It's just the logistics of moving. Not to mention the fact now we're making a lot more runs. Now a cough turns into a possible, right? Which then there's this whole other protocol. I mean, we just made so many runs. We also have a couple teams where we basically, when there is a public health emergency, someone through the state, they can put in a request to go, hey, we need help. So we sent several ambulances down to the valley. So not only were we covering our community, we sent an ambulance down to the valley to cover their community too, because all their EMS employees had COVID from transporting COVID patients. It was insane. But anyway, yeah. Sorry, that was a long answer to your question, sorry. So, anything else? It's gotta be something. We don't have any fire poles. Everybody always asks that. There are no fire poles. Right? The reason why is because firemen slide down the fire pole and then break their leg and then they can't make the call. So those are gone. We don't have a fire dog. We do have Sparky. He works with Brenna, my wife, every day. So anyway.
You said that the fire trucks do not go outside the city limits?
Not unless it's specifically asked for per our mutual aid agreement. So like if the ambulances will go all the way to the county line. Yes, ma'am. Yes, we got you. We got you covered. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And we work very closely with a lot of those volunteer departments, Wall, Grape Creek, Dove Creek. We train them too. So when we're doing a training, we'll call up, hey, why don't y'all come in? And they do training right alongside us, which is good for their community, obviously. So, all right, good deal. I could talk forever. I'm a talker, so I'm a deal. My mom's telling me to cut it off.
About how many new firefighters do you get every year?
So we hire about 8 to 10 a year, and that just depends on retirees. They're leaving at all time. I tell you, we're right in a time where we're about to lose quite a few in the next 5 years, probably. So there's going to be a lot of turnover. We have 16 recruits in school right now, which is a big class. But generally about 8 to 10 a year. And remember I said, so from the day they're hired, they're not usable until 18 months. We can't put them to work for 18 months. So there's a big gap there, and you're always having to think, so while you hire 8, because let's see, we're losing this many, we hire 8, we're good. And then those 18 months, in 6 months, 5 more leave, and you're like, oh man, we got to do 5 more, So that's just a constant, it never stops, so.
What is your normal graduation rate? Do most of the students who go those 18 months or go into the school graduate and continue?
So I tell you that the last time that we did not have a graduation was in my rookie school. Two people in our class did not pass the paramedic class, and they let them go. One of them ended up finally passing and then just reapplied and came right back through. But since then, I cannot think of one that has not passed. We have a 100% pass rate, which is not normal. And that speaks volumes to, right now, our paramedic class has to be done through an accredited university. So all of our paramedics, when they go into the paramedic portion, they enroll in Howard as an employee of the fire department, and they're actually going to school at Howard as fire department employees. So Howard has a wonderful program. They have a wonderful pass rate. It's way higher than the national average. They get audited all the time. But that is wonderful. I can't tell you how many, that's not the case at a lot of fire departments. They spend a lot of money training these people, and they don't always make it out. We don't have that issue. So hopefully that doesn't ever start. But good question. No one's ever really asked me that. So
is there a new class starting like every 6 months?
So right now they're kind of overlapped. So fire only takes about 3 to 4 months. The rest of that is paramedic. Paramedic is You know, any of y'all that have ever taken like anatomy, physiology, we cram that in about a month. I mean now you're going to school 8 to 5, right? You can do a lot during 8 to 5, but that's what we're talking about, how the speed in which is happening. And what they do is the paramedic class, they go through EMT basic, which is like the basic certification. They test, and then they step into the paramedic program, and then that's the remainder of it. But a lot of times, sometimes we need them faster. Like I told you, we need 8. We hire them, 5 more lead. Man, we need 8 more. So we'll hire 8 more, and one group goes through fire, and then we start a paramedic. We hire 8 more, and now they go through paramedic together. And when they come out of paramedic, one group's already had both. They go onto the floor or go start working, and then we hire another. And then they're always, that's the goal, is to always have them overlapped like that. Which works out really well for us as people leave.
So you talked about how y'all have to be there for extended amount of time, 24 hours,
yes, sir.
if I remember correct. So are there things that y'all need donated to help make y'all's life a little bit better, whether that's food, blankets, pillows, books, magazines, things that would help y'all kill that, time if there's some rest, or even things that y'all like to get donations to that y'all then pass on to the community that we could help y'all with?
I tell you what, that's per a city policy, we can't say, hey, you need to come donate something to us. A lot of people bring us cookies and things like that. I can't tell you that is the highlight, right? Because I'm usually with these 5 to 10 guys that I'm just tired of looking at them. They smell bad, and then in walks a youth group, and hey, we're just letting you guys know, man, we're praying for you. Thank you for what you do, and here's some cookies. I cannot tell you how big of a deal that is. And so something as small as that is preferred. We can't really get things donated, obviously, because of us being a city entity, and there's some rules on that. And a lot of times when someone does bring something that's a no-no for us, we immediately hop in the truck and go give it to somebody else, and then let them know, hey, we appreciate it, but we can't accept that. So we're from you through us, we're going to do this. So, that's another thing. Your tax dollars pay for the trucks we're driving, the ambulances we're driving, our salaries, the fire stations we're in. You can come at any time and go and visit that station. Look at what you want. Hop on the trucks. They're your trucks. A lot of people don't think of it like that. I advertise all the time. Call Central Fire Station. Come get a tour. Come down. We'll hook it up. I'll let you squirt water. We'll do the whole thing. Can we drive them too? You cannot drive them. There's some insurance issues there, but absolutely, let you get up in it, sit in the driver's seat, see all the buttons, because there are tons of buttons. But come down. People are like, wow, we didn't want to bug you. No, absolutely not. If you're at a Friday night football game and you see an ambulance, you want to look at it, you walk right up there and go, hey, you mind if I look in there? Absolutely, you are absolutely allowed to do that. Please do. So a lot of people don't think about that, but. We do. I can't believe I missed that. So we have ranks within the fire department. So a hosman, driver, lieutenant, captain, battalion chief, and then administrative chief. And somewhere over here, Mason's something, right? But it is. So the driver, exactly what it sounds like. A driver usually is the driver of the truck. So when you see a fire truck driving down the road, kind of the way it works is the driver is driving. That's his rank. The officer who is in charge is sitting in the passenger seat, front passenger seat. And the hosman, who's kind of the grunt, is sitting in the back. So they all have a specific role and a specific rank within the structure. So, but everyone does receive training that can drive the truck and knows how to drive the truck and knows how to pump the truck. So when there is a day where maybe the driver's not there and they drop it down to hosman, there is a fight on who's about to do that. But anyway, good question. Yes, ma'am.
So I never thought much about fire safety till I had a child, and now I think about it probably more than I really should. But what do you respond to the most when it comes to fires? Is it preventable? Is it some
there are freak accidents, but almost, I would say, and Brenna, my wife, could probably answer this better than I can, but I would almost say all of them, most all of them are preventable. There is. Inevitably, when it gets cold and everybody starts kicking on their heater for the first time, that's probably when most of the fires come. They're not always fires, they're usually, electrical stuff shorting out or, house fills up with smoke. We make a lot of dumpster fires. We make a lot of electrical fires. And man, 100-degree heat, it's dry. Sometimes it's not, there's not much moisture on the ground. We have a lot of, urban wildland interface in San Angelo. We make a lot of grass fires, and a lot of those grass fires contribute to the structure fire that's fixing to happen because it happens right next to a house, and then here we go. We make a lot of vehicle fires. So not just one that I would think of that's, oh man, we make a lot of those. We have a pretty big mix. I mean, there's not one big glaring like, man, we make a lot of those just here in San Angelo. It's pretty well spread out. A good question.
Last one.
Last one.
My wife works for the CPS,
Mm-hmm.
and sadly, there's still a lot of kids that get abandoned. And we know, they tell them at the hospital, drop them off at a firehouse or the police station. What do y'all do anything specific to like reach out to like these young moms or young parents?
We do. So we're a safe baby site, which means that anyone at any time can drive up to a fire station and leave a child. It's happened several times since I've been on the fire department. We have a protocol that we go out and that we have to follow. That's fixing to happen, and man, that's not a good day. I can tell you, we usually almost have like a little stress debriefing every time that happens, just so we can sit down and talk about it. I know some media outlets reached out to us the last time that we had one, which was within the last 2 years, and came and did a full story with us, and we try to do the best we can to put that out there, that we are a safe baby site. I don't think sometimes that's a comfortable thing to talk about, but you're right. I mean, it's got to get out there, oh man, that's not a fun day at the fire station when that does happen. But yes, we do try to put out as much as we can that we are one of those sites. We have signs at every one of the fire stations that lets you know that. And the first time I dealt with that, man, that's tough. I just happened to be standing outside. I'm blowing off one of the deals, and someone wheels up and says, "Hey, I need to talk to you about something, and here's what we're about to do." And I'm like, I think I need to call someone. Okay, but that's tough. But yes, we do. Yes, sir.
One of my favorite quotes from Mr. Rogers is he says, if you see a tragedy, look for the helpers. And oftentimes we don't think that the helpers have got such a huge responsibility. We don't think about the after effects. And I know in Houston, so many firefighters struggle with mental health, and they struggle with, just as you said, trying to figure it all out. And so prayer may not seem like much that we can do, but it's huge. And thank you for sharing and being vulnerable tonight. And my hope is that we'll start looking more intentionally at our firefighter brothers and sisters. So can I pray for you? I know you've got a job ahead of you. God, thank you so much for tonight. Thanks for Mason's words, his heart. Lord, thank you for allowing us the opportunity to hear you, I believe, through him, and how we can be more attentive, be more prayerful, be more helpful to those people who have given their life to helping us. Thank you. Help us to be more like you. And I pray that we shine brightly here as they have shined brightly to help us. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you, Mason. I appreciate it. Thank you.